Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Before this year's World Championship, only 3 players ever had completed a back-to-back at Champs, and 1 week ago today, Dashy and Shotzzy joins that very exclusive list, and Dashy says there's no reason they couldn't go for 1 more in a row. OpTic become the first org to win 2 in a row as an organisation, and Dashy says why not go for the 3-Peat and win next year. But if that is going to be the case, Dashy certainly has a few ideas on exactly how they want to make next season significantly better than this one in terms of their run-up to the biggest tournament of the year. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. We are going to quickly start here with the changes that we have seen over the last few days. This is the P7 Esports team. So they've now been loaned to P7 because Omit had 2 teams qualify, right? So the main Omit team, that of course being Vivid, Mac, Craze and Mamba, they qualified, they won DreamHack Dallas, the Challengers event there, they just won Challengers Champs, and they actually beat this team in the finals. They smoked them 4-0 in finals. Now, Omit can't have 2 teams competing at the World Cup, that's just the rule, and therefore, which makes sense, so therefore they're loaning this team out elsewhere. So I imagine this team of 4 wants to stay together. It would be pretty, it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because at the end of the day, they made the finals at Challengers Champs, but they did get smoked 4-0, so they might have thought about doing something, but the new organisation is not going to be able to just drop these guys and bring their own team in, which I think is good. But yeah, the team for your guys' note is Uli, Brack, Proloot and then Standy, right? So that's the team of 4. All players that we've seen in the league at some point or another. Proloot, of course, came in. Well, he was in the league a couple of times. He had the OpTic stint, had the Vegas stint. Brack was around for a little while. Brack goes way back. I know that lots of players have given Brack some credit for improving his gameplay over the last few years in terms of, let's call it, his efficiency. Uli was in the league briefly with Ravens a couple of years ago now. And then Standy, of course, had a couple of chances too. So we'll see how these guys get on. I know that Don has talked about the fact that maybe Brack would be a man that he would look for if he was looking for an AR. I know that some would hope that for the Esports World Cup we'd see some new blood, maybe that we hadn't seen in the league before, but at the end of the day, the teams that tend to qualify for these tournaments are just former pros, and not to say those former pros can't have gone down to challenges and improve and become better versions of themselves. Not to say exactly that's what happened with Huke, but Huke started this year in challenges, and he won the World Championship a week ago. So it goes to show that players, and Huke I think especially is an example of a player who did recognise that they were lacking in certain aspects of their gameplay and they levelled it up. But of course with Huke he's always had immense gun skill and immense talent, and he's finally put all the other pieces together here over the last few months, and it helped out OpTic drastically at Champs. These are the teams that have made changes. So 5 teams making changes going into the Esports World Cup. It's more than last year. Last year I think we only had 1, didn't we? Ravens made a change, they brought in Beans. But this year we've seen a lot of changes. Falcons, a few of these teams are making one-man moves. I wonder whether these teams would have made more than a one-man move if they could have done, because the teams that were under contract still post-Champs, that was not the case for Ravens, but the teams under contract post-Champs, they could only make a one-man change. So Falcons, they dropped Priester and picked up TJ. That's their team. Notably Xnid on the flex. I'm not going to say what I said yesterday again, but he's on the flex, and as a result, it opens the door maybe to Falcons to say, okay, next year, maybe we have an Xnid on the flex situation, Pred on the slaying SMG, and then somebody else on the, let's say, entry SMG role, and then maybe a different AR. We'll see what Falcons put together. Of course, there's been talk about maybe bringing in Sib to that team, but I think this is going to be an interesting litmus test for the Falcons to see, okay, does Xnid work on the flex? How's it looking with Pred and Tej on the subs? What about the AR situation? Would bringing in Sib make some sense now? Or, would Sib and Xnid as an AR combo really work? What would the comms be like? These other factors are important. Ravens, totally blown it up. Slasher's still there. This hasn't been confirmed yet as a recording, this team, so, most of these teams, they've confirmed everything. But for Ravens, I don't think they've officially confirmed that Rex is gone yet either. They've confirmed that Tej is gone. They've confirmed that, of course, Gwinn is gone, because those other organisations were confirming that. Rex has not been confirmed yet, presumably because he's not going to be joining another organisation. And then it's Afro, F-Dot and Cobra. That's maybe my real exciting team to watch, actually, to see how those guys get on. And I think also Slasher has to recognise that, okay, this might not be the team that he would put together in his imagination that he'd be playing with at the World Cup. But if Sasha can lock in and make it work with these guys, he has a lot of talent, I think, to work with on that roster. But again, for teams in that type of position, search and destroy becomes very critical. Toronto have made a change. They've brought in aBeZy, not aBeZy, but aBe, who's been calling some shots for some time in challenges. Him, he spent his time on the Stallions, right? We know that the Stallions maybe has harboured some pretty good talent over this last season or so. JoeDeceives was gassing him up and saying you can't wait to see what this guy's going to be capable of. CleanX, though, to the flex. Insight and CleanX, AR duo, never thought I'd see the day. Gentlemates made a one-man change, minus FeLo, plus Diamond Con, and Cloud9, they got rid of Capsidal and brought in Gwinn. So those are the 5 teams that have made changes. The other teams are going to stay the same, but as I say, the Challengers teams as a result of that have also had a little bit of chaos going on there as well. Now, not to say that these things are going to happen, but I know that people were throwing it around as to what could happen after the Esports World Cups. Just to keep in mind, 5 teams have changed before the World Cup. After the World Cup, how many teams are we expecting to change of the 12? I mean, 11? I don't know, 10, 11? Something in that number would be expected, really, because Falcons obviously are going to try and do something. If they do something, could they acquire some asset? Could they go and get an aBeZy? We've talked about that recently. Are FaZe pretty vulnerable to making a change? I think absolutely that is true. There have been some rumours around Toronto maybe even wanting Drazah. So what does that look like? If Simp is available, that raises some questions too. So it could all go on after that. And we know that there's a serious trickle-down effect. Even teams like Boston that kept their roster together all year, I think it's quite clear that they should be able to upgrade that team despite the good result at Champs. And if they go to the World Cup and it isn't quite as good, they can't quite replicate that, then it's going to push even more teams in that direction. And also, I guess the question could be, how much does the EWC matter for these teams? Like, if OpTic come in and win the World Cup and they go back-to-back Champs and World Cup and they take, I don't even know what the prize pool is for the World Cup, 1.2 mil, 1.5 mil, something in that kind of ballpark, I think. They take home the money for that. Like, surely at that point you can't justify a change. But if OpTic don't do so well at the World Cup, kind of like last year, maybe it's something that should be considered. If Simp is available, it's certainly a talking point, and it's not going to go away because Simp is still Simp at the end of the day, and who knows what happens with FaZe. Let's talk OpTic though, because I'm sure that the OpTic fans, generally speaking, would really love that team to stay together. And I think that it will, more likely than not. But as I say, if Simp is available, it's never exactly a conversation that you totally ignore, especially because, look, it worked out for OpTic this year. They found Mercules, it worked out. But in hindsight, after they won Champs last year, should they have tried to get Scrap or HyDra when they're available rather than saying, no, we're fine with this team? If you look back at it in hindsight, it probably would have been the correct decision to have a look at HyDra and Scrap and see if they could make something work there, rather than letting them both go to Thieves. Of course, for OpTic in the end it worked out, but Mercules kind of came out of nowhere and saved their season. Until that point, it was looking like an absolute shambles. Now, Dashy joins the 8th, he becomes the 8th player in history of OpTic to win 5 championships for the Green Wall. Kremp, Formal Calm and Najot, then Big Timer and Merc won 5 or more for the Green Wall back in the day, and now Dashy joins that very exclusive club as well. Shotzzy, of course, isn't far off either, but Dashy also won that event with the team back in 2018, December that year, the 2019 Black Ops 4 season at CWL Las Vegas, that many of you guys may well remember. But Dashy now having completely turned his career around, right? For years, Dashy, the conversation was, damn, this guy's got so much talent, why has he only won 2 championships in the last 7 years? And now the conversation is dramatically different. Back-to-back world champion. I think improved his own gameplay as well significantly in terms of the team play and, let's say, the objective work that he did. Also, outside of the game stuff as well, issues that we talked about in years past seemingly getting resolved. So, it's great to see for Dashy, and it's a remarkable conversation that Dashy can genuinely come on stream and say, we're not just talking about a 3-peat that Drazah and the FaZe boys got, the World Cup Major 1, Major 2, good 3-peat, fair play, but it's not the same as winning back-to-back-to-back World Championships, and Dashy and the OpTic boys are potentially in a position to try and do that next season. It's going to be a conversation all year as to whether they can actually pull it off, and what that looks like is a question, because of course Kenny and Pred not on the team anymore, right? So it's not a full 3-peat if it was to happen with the same roster exactly, but no organisation has ever gone back-to-back. OpTic have now done it, 2024-2025, and Dashy and Shotzzy join a very exclusive club of players that have done it. But this is what Dashy has to say in terms of, okay, next year, The opportunity is definitely there, and he thinks it's possible for sure, but he would like to see their preparation before the World Championship be substantially better.
3P next year going to be insane. I'm so down, bro. Definitely sounds crazy. Just that even like the fact that it's like a possibility is crazy. We still got one more event this year, bro. It's not like too far ahead. And then next season, let's just hope like we're actually also in let's just like put ourselves in a better position too for champs. Let's not be shitting bricks for every league match and every event, and then praying on other people's downfalls so we make champs. Like I was sitting there, you know how much dope I was getting seeing Minnesota lose, and was a C9 at the beginning of stage 4, and they were probably doing the same shit with us. They were like, bro, these guys lost to LEG, there's hope. But I low-key knew we were gonna make champs when Minnesota lost to Vegas online. Because we beat Seattle, which nobody had us beating. We were already 4 games ahead of them since we had the head-to-head. We had 4 games ahead of them. And then we won our game. And then they lost their like easy game. We won our hard game, they won their easy game, so it was like we were up like 5 series on top of having like a easier quote-unquote schedule. And I also know like the mental part that comes with that. Like they probably like know that like they was probably fucking with them. I mean, as it should, because like bro, like you can't really troll in that situation. But
crazy to look back on the standings of the season. OpTic was 7th at 220 points, and yeah, in the end they qualified for champs pretty comfortably, and they played FaZe in the first round, and even if they'd have played Thieves, maybe they still win, given the way that things were. But I mean, look at that. OpTic all season had 220 points. It was the same as Ravens had, and Ravens were terrible for the last half of the season. Thieves had 540, so you know, you double up OpTic's points, and you'd still have to win another major to catch Thieves. Like, that was 100 points for a major win, right? So, yeah, honestly remarkable to think, like, that OpTic were really scrapping it out to qualify for champs for a large part of the season. And, you know, it's probably worth just having a quick look here at their matches all year, just to contemplate how things were going, right? Because they lost to FaZe at the World Cup, of course. Then they start the year really well. They go 6-1, number 1 seed. They turn up to the minor. They do okay there, but they lose to Ravens. They turn up to the major. Bit of a disaster there. And then major 2 qualifiers, bang, you know, they get the absolutely outrageous 0-18 run. There was technically 0-21 if you consider the fact that they lost the last 3 maps of this series to Ravens as well. And even then, they slowly turn it around. They played the Falcons, but, you know, it was still looking pretty awful. And then really it was only here when they started to play a little bit better, when Mercules started to join the team. So yeah, roller coaster of a season, but it's got to be said, only 3 players ever did it, right? Karma did it in 2013, 2014, and then in 2015, of course, he ended up on the OpTic Nation team with the World Championship going on with like TP, Killer and Miracles, I think, and they bombed out very early on. So he wasn't even on the OpTic Gaming team then. He joined shortly afterwards, and then they started to win everything. So Karma didn't get the opportunity to go for the 3-peat, really. Cap did it in 2015, 2016, and then 2017, of course, for the Infinite Warfare season. Wasn't far away from making it happen. He made the grand finals in 2017, but unfortunately for Cap, had a pretty difficult time in those grand finals against OpTic. And then Clay 2019, 2020, and then in 2021, you know, he was on that New York team and they showed some promise, but in the end, you know, they weren't good enough. So, you know, a few occasions where players have had the chance to get it. I mean, Cap was the closest. I mean, Cap nearly won every single world championship in the Jetpack era, but, you know, it didn't happen in the end, and OpTic took it away from him in the 2017 grand finals. But, yeah, so those are the only 3 players. Cap was the one that came closest. The other 2 never really looked like threatening. So that's the big question, really, for this upcoming season, whether OpTic can actually go one step further than these other legendary names on this list. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
And I remember they were playing like 2K or something, and I was going to bed. I can sleep through anything, so I didn't care. I was like, you guys can be as loud as you want. Like, I'm going to knock out. And I remember I fell asleep and they said they were all freaked out because I started calling out in my sleep. Like I was like I was calling out everything, but like I remember it's one of the only dreams I really remember, because I remember waking up and I won the event in the dream. Like in the dream, I remember like I played through the maps. I won it. Yeah. And I remember I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna fucking win the event. I saw my future. Like that's what I thought. I was like, I saw my future. Like I know I can win. Like I know this is possible. Yeah. And that's what Kenny was like, bro. I knew we were gonna win the event when I heard Sheen calling out in his sleep, bro.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing him say that too. Yeah.
And